For the second straight season, Texas A&M men's basketball season ends in the second round of the NCAA Tournament. This one, a 91-79 loss to Michigan. Travis, kind of first off, initial thoughts of how this one went when about midway through the second half, it seemed like this was Texas A&M's to lose.
I guess at the risk of claiming that we might have jinxed it, there was a time there with probably, about 14 minutes in the second half. A&M was up 10. We were kind of talking about, have you talked to our boss about, the flights to Atlanta yet? I don't know, how that's all going to work out. And then it seemed like after that, it snowballed a little bit. What it really was, Pharrell Payne had a great second half. Well, first off, the first half was Anderson Garcia.
Yeah.
His ability to shoot the ball from three-point range, get 9 points early. Wade Taylor got in foul trouble. That enabled them to keep Wade on the bench because he was kind of filling that distance shooting role for A&M. Second half, it was Pharrell Payne. He put up 25 and was just a threat down low, even against 2 7-footers down there. But his last basket came with 11 minutes to play in the game, and from 11 minutes to basically 2 minutes left in the game, A&M had one field goal make, and that was a three-pointer from Wade Taylor. In that span, Michigan went on a 14-3 run, and it was kind of just put it to ice at that point, put it to bed at that point. So second half just turned on them real quickly.
We've seen dry spells like this before from this A&M team where they're hot and they're rolling, and then it just big chunks of the game can't get anything going. I don't know. Did it seem like they changed anything out there? I mean, why do you feel like, I guess, they had such this disparity of kind of the first three quarters of the game, and then what happened at the end?
Yeah, when Payne kind of went on his hot streak there early in the second half, I leaned over to you, and it seemed like Michigan switched to a 2-3 zone.
Mm-hmm.
And when they did that, A&M had trouble not only kind of getting the ball into Payne or Coleman or Garcia, some of the guys who were playing the post down there, but they really struggled getting any kind of dribble penetration as well. It didn't flow as well on offense when things were flowing extremely well on offense there to start the second half. And then defensively, they just couldn't seem to get a stop. I mean, this is a Michigan team that is one of the worst in the country in turning the ball over, and they did that pretty frequently in the first half, but then after the 11-minute mark, they didn't turn the ball over again. So A&M was forced to rely on defensive rebounds to try to get stops, and they just didn't do that well enough.
I do think this Michigan squad is a really good team, too. I think they've been very up and down this season, but by winning the Big Ten tournament, I think they're one of these teams that, you get hot at the right time, and that's exactly what they're doing, and they've got kind of the personnel to do that.
And the other thing, too, is, and Buzz Williams mentioned this, the Michigan got in the bonus early in both halves, and A&M has to depend on getting in the bonus first and using some of those free throws, some of those fouls that lead to free throws to get a lead. Michigan took advantage of that. They played A&M's game to that point. They beat them in rebounds. They tied them 17-17 in second chance points. A&M only had, I believe it was 9 points off of turnover. Like, every statistical category that needed to go right for A&M ultimately didn't.
It's almost like Michigan played A&M's game better than they did.
A little bit, yeah.
Like that. It's one of those, obviously very disappointing loss when this is a team that really thought they had what it took to make a deeper run in March. But, you and I went to the locker room afterwards, and there are some times where when your season comes to an end, that there's just this very, very somber feeling and just everyone's heartbroken. That didn't seem the case today, especially with what kind of we were talking about with this group of seniors.
Well, kind of pulling back the journalism curtain here, we have two options when the game ends. You can go to the press conference room where the head coach talks and takes questions, and a couple, 2-3 of the players take questions, or there's an open locker room, which is something we never really get during the regular season. It's a special treat as a part of the NCAA tournament where after a certain cooling off period, we can go in and basically talk to whoever we want to as long as they agree to an interview. And, a lot of times when a season ends, you want to get the coach's perspective on what this team meant to him and a key player or two. But this is one of those teams with 8 seniors. A lot of those, Wade Taylor, the career points leader, playing his last game. Henry Coleman, who's kind of been like the face of not only A&M basketball but SEC basketball and some of the roles he's had. Like the story of this team is very player driven.
Yeah.
And so we made the choice, and that we forget the press conference. We're going to go into the locker room and talk to these guys, because the reactions of what the players had to say meant so much more than anything the coach had to say in this game. So that being said, the kind of question we pose to them is, what is the senior class's legacy? Because I think, and you can correct me, and let me give you your input on this before we kind of go any further. It's been, emotionally, from the fan base, I feel like it's been a little bit of a roller coaster reaction to this team that succeeded and is one of the most historic teams in program history, but you might not have known that by some of the reaction from people outside, as Bus would say, Team Bus One.
Yeah, what I don't get about kind of that reaction is, there almost seems like the fan base seemed to kind of be out on this team very early on. It seemed like, and
we'll preface and say portions of the fan base.
Right.
Portions of the fan base.
Yeah, it's hard to, you can't put a blanket statement over everybody, but it seemed like there were portions of the fan base that seemed out, and for an odd reason, because it's not like this team historically it's not a great basketball school with a lot of historic success. Yes, they've had stretches. They've been to the Sweet 16 a couple times. They've made several runs at tournaments, but when you look at the history of this program, not a whole lot. And the fact that they've gotten to this point 3 straight tournaments is saying something.
I mean, let's look at some of the stats. You have Wade Taylor, career leader in points on the team. You have Hayden Hefner, the career leader in games. This A&M squad over the last 3 years has set the second longest NCAA tournament streak in program history.
Which is over 100 years.
113 years, I think, is what it is. And the last one, of course, was 6 games when Buzz Williams was part of the staff as an assistant. And it went from 2005 to about 2011. In that span. And so no other group of seniors has done better, save for those in that one run in the early 2000s, which is still kind of wild when you think of 113 years of A&M basketball. And so statistically, the numbers are there. This is one of the best teams that's out there.
Well, and C.J. Wilcher said it, right off the bat when we asked about the legacy. He said, this is the greatest team in Texas A&M history, and they went beyond we're not talking about record. Yeah, sure, there have been teams that have maybe had a little more success, wins and losses than they have, but what they were able to accomplish. This group of seniors, and especially in this era of the transfer portal and NIL, it's so unique to have a group of 8 seniors like this. Many of them have been around for all 4 years. You have your Henry Coleman and Hayden Hefner and Wade Taylor and others that have stuck around at A&M rather than leaving ship. They've been through a lot of ups and downs, but when you look at kind of their careers, it's been nothing but crescendoing to potentially what this could have been an even deeper run into March. It's very impressive.
So when you look at C.J. Wilcher, when you ask him what he thinks the legacy is of the senior class, he said just best team ever.
Yeah.
When you asked Jace Carter, he would kind of defiantly said he doesn't care what everybody thinks the legacy is. The legacy to them is family, is the connection that they'll have together. Henry Coleman interestingly said that he thinks the legacy is beyond the basketball court. It's the interaction that they had with the community. You have Wade Taylor, who has a foundation. He was constantly giving to the Boys and Girls Club of Brazos Valley and to some boys and girls back in his hometown of Dallas. Notable that through his mom's side of the family, they have roots in Madisonville, which is a part of the Brazos Valley community. Henry Coleman is the only 3-time chair of the SEC Basketball Leadership Committee, which is the student organization. It's kind of like basketball student council for the SEC. Like, they get to propose and have a say in some rule amendments and different way things go. And I joked with him afterwards that he needs to when he's the commissioner of the SEC, he still needs to take our calls when we're old.
I do think when Sankey hangs it up, we're going to be looking at Commissioner Henry Coleman.
Yeah, probably. And then you have guys like CJ and Zurich, who were here for a year, but they bought in quickly and bought into their roles and bought into the community. Zurich was a part of some of that Wade Taylor stuff. So it's just a group that put as much into the community and the people that supported them as they necessarily did on the basketball court, and that should be commended too, especially like you said, in the era of the transfer portal, NIL, players aren't staying places for very long. Jace Carter said that's unique. You probably won't see that again, and there's a reality to that.
I really don't think you will. I think fans need to appreciate kind of what they've seen, not only this year, but the last 3 or 4 years, maybe 3 years especially. But what this team and this season especially meant. I know it's disappointing to you exit in the first round of the NCAA tournament, but when you look at what they beat Auburn at Reed Arena, the #1 team, first time in program history to beat a #1 ranked team in the country. You got to witness Wade Taylor breaking A&M's career scoring record. There are a lot of things special things on the court and off the court, like you mentioned, that this team has done. Yeah, you're just not going to see a group like this again. 8 seniors. That's amazing.
Maybe not as much this season, but in some of the couple seasons past, they kind of reminded me, and I'm going to tap into a little bit of my own background of fandom that you'll appreciate, maybe something out there. It was kind of like that 2010-2011 Texas Rangers team where you had all those guys that were full of personality. You had nicknames and Boomstick and the Claw and the Ant. Like there was that just togetherness and kind of goofiness and a lot of fan favorites, and the way that I put it as what I think their legacy should be is you could argue that there might have been teams in the past that were better than this team. I mean, even 2018 A&M advanced to the Sweet 16 only to lose to Michigan.
Yeah.
In the future, there will probably be an A&M team that advances past the second round or even the Sweet 16. But when A&M fans kind of gather around at the Dixie Chicken to discuss who is some of the best teams, or might I say C&J's Barbecue, when they gather around and talk about, who is some of the best A&M basketball teams ever, this squad might not necessarily come out as on top, but they should always get brought up.
I agree 100%. I think what they meant culturally and kind of what the legacy really, and like Jace Carter said, they don't care what others think, but I think it's a reality of the legacy they're leaving is real. And like we said, it's something that we might not see again. So now when you look at the future, you do have 8 seniors who, all 8 of those seniors made significant impact. I mean, the depth of this team was amazing too. When you have 10 guys averaging over 10 minutes, I don't know. When you look at the immediate future next year, there's a lot of question marks.
Yeah, I mean, basically the key leadership group is going to be Solomon Washington. I mean, Pharrell Payne, which is a very good piece, and we talked about you're going to build around.
Yeah, you build around him, and you get the right piece around him, you can have a really good team. I think we kind of likened that to almost a Josh Nebo, but I think he's going to be better than Josh Nebo.
Sure. And when you talk about things that you might not see before, they have 3 freshmen coming up that redshirted.
Yeah.
And assuming, transfer portal opens on Monday, assuming they can keep everybody on roster, that's pretty rare too, that you're going to have guys who have been in the system, been a part of all of this, that are going to have still 4 more years, kind of namely Andre Mills, who's probably going to step right into a point guard role because they lose Wade Taylor, Zurich Phelps, and Manny Obaseki. But like Buzz said in the press conference room, tomorrow they're probably going to be on planes tomorrow.
Yeah.
To start talking and start going, because that portal window opens Monday, and this is going to be one of those teams next year that is going to look very different because of the 8 key players that they're going to have to replace.
Well, that's the thing, is we don't know what it's going to look like. But again, in this era of the transfer portal and NIL and everything, it's easier to have kind of these rebuild seasons, and they could potentially be just as good, if not better, next year. It'll look a lot different, and you need the right pieces to come in. But that is a possibility. Again, we don't know what it's going to look like, so we don't know who they're going to get.
And this could be a very interesting transfer portal for the Aggies, because men's basketball, even if you look at things like 12th Man Foundation donations, they're like 7th of all the programs last year. When you look at the financial documents that A&M had to file, it's not a program that has drawn a lot of support monetarily in the past, but Buzz Williams made no qualms about it when they talked about getting into that Players Era Festival, and they will be there for a few years, that the guaranteed $1 million that you get to go into the collective towards basketball is going to be money that they did not have before. And Williams said, like, in order to build the rosters that we need, we had to get into that tournament. The fact that they'll have that for in the next few years could change the way that things look a little bit in portal recruiting, because like we've mentioned, money and the availability of it necessarily hasn't been that prevalent around the program.
Yeah, and that's going to be a big thing. If they can find unique ways like the tournaments and other things, and if they can get more monetary support, then it obviously is going to be easier. But yeah, it'll just be interesting because we just don't know. I mean, maybe they can get another Zurich, maybe they can get another shooter like CJ. That's ideal, but that's to be determined, I guess, of kind of what this team will look like, which really is the first time we've kind of had to ask ourselves what it's going to look like in a while, because we've had this senior class that stuck together, this core that for so long. They've only needed to kind of replace a couple pieces here and there. Now they're just going to have to rebuild everything.
Let's go back. We'll close it out with this. When you think about this season, what is probably the first thought or memory of the season that comes to mind?
I think of Wade Taylor. I just think of coming into the season, he knew he had the scoring record in reach. And he could have approached it in a way of, I am going to go out and be as aggressive as I can scoring, and I am going to get this record. He took the least shots of his career, minus his freshman year, this year. He's always been kind of a good point guard, but he really looked to distribute, I feel like, a lot more. And that's because he knew he had better pieces around him this year. But I just think of what Wade Taylor was able to do. That's going to be, for me, the thing that I think about and breaking that record. I don't know what comes to your mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think if there's like an image, like a still image of the season, it's Wade hugging his dad and sobbing right after the Auburn game when they retired his number. So much surrounding that and everything. That's probably a big piece of it. But I think one of the unsung heroes and a storyline I attached on too late was CJ Wilcher, and how he was able to finally find his rhythm and groove shooting. I mean, we pulled up those stats. He had it was going to be a little different because we looked at it in the middle of the game, but he had like 109 field goal attempts on the season, and 9 of those were 2-point attempts.
Yeah.
Like, that is absurd.
Yes.
That is video game. That is what I did for my creative player when I played like NBA 2K, is just hoist up threes from any portion of the court and never shoot a 2. But that was his role.
Yeah,
and
he knew
did
his role. Yeah.
And the whole story about how he kind of came to be, of him being here with the broken plane and everything like that. Like, it fits into this program and kind of what they've built it to be. And so I'll think back on CJ Wilcher's participation in all of this as well.
Definitely a season to remember, and it's March and things move fast. We're already getting the court all cleaned and ready to go back to the Denver Nuggets. But for one last time at the basketball season, now it's on the baseball season. But reporting from Ball Arena in Denver for Travis Brown, I'm Tyler Shaw.